In the last 12 hours, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps seized a supertanker carrying 2 million barrels of oil. Is this the act of piracy that finally drags the United States into a direct war? And what does it mean for the price of oil tomorrow morning? The vessel, the MV Helios Ray, a Panamanian-flagged tanker chartered by a Japanese consortium, was not just randomly targeted, it was systematically isolated. At 4:17 a.m. local time, while transiting the narrowest passage of the Strait of Hormuz, its GPS and AIS tracking systems simultaneously went dark. A digital ghost. This was not a malfunction. Analysis of satellite data confirms a localized electronic warfare attack disabled the ship's primary navigation and communication suites. For 22 critical minutes, the Helios Ray was blind and deaf, adrift in the world's most dangerous waterway. Then, they appeared. Not the typical fast attack speedboats, but a new generation of Iranian naval assets. A swarm of at least a dozen Shahed-136 maritime drones, modified for surface operations, encircled the tanker. Simultaneously, IRGC commandos fast-roped from a Sea King helicopter onto the deck. The crew, understanding orders to avoid confrontation, offered no resistance. The entire operation was executed with unprecedented precision and speed. The world's oil supply just took a direct hit. This event is a fundamental shift in strategy. It has moved beyond simple harassment to a calculated demonstration of chokepoint dominance. Tehran is no longer just threatening disruption. It is showcasing its capability to surgically remove assets from the global energy supply chain at will. The implications are immediate and severe. 20% of the world's total oil consumption passes through this strait. Every drone, every fast boat, every missile silo within range is a loaded gun pointed at the heart of the global economy. The seizure of the Helios Ray was not a random act of aggression. It was a message, delivered with the cold calculus of a military planner. The IRGC has a new doctrine. The previous tactics of swarming tankers with small, armed speedboats were designed for intimidation and media spectacle. This new approach is different. It is a multi-domain assault, combining cyber warfare, unmanned systems, and elite special forces. It demonstrates a level of command, control, and technological sophistication that has caught Western intelligence agencies off guard. This signals that Iran is confident it can now escalate and de-escalate confrontations on its own terms, creating a new, volatile equilibrium in the Gulf. For global markets, this injects a level of risk not seen since the tanker war of the 1980s. The question is no longer if Iran will disrupt shipping, but how often and how severe the disruptions will be. The immediate financial shockwave is already being felt. Brent crude futures jumped over 8% in Asian trading. Shipping insurance premiums for vessels entering the Persian Gulf have quadrupled overnight. Lloyd's of London is reportedly convening an emergency session to reclassify the entire region as a high war risk zone. What does this mean for the global consumer? Energy analysts project that if the strait remains a contested zone, gasoline prices in the United States could rise by as much as 50 cents a gallon within 2 weeks. For Europe and Asia, which are far more dependent on Gulf oil, the economic pain will be even more acute, threatening to trigger a recession. This is the first rehook. The tension you feel about global conflict is about to directly impact your wallet. The diplomatic response has been a flurry of condemnation and urgent consultations. A statement from the U.S. State Department called the seizure a flagrant violation of international law and demanded the immediate release of the vessel and its crew. The Japanese government, whose economy is now directly threatened, has lodged a formal protest through the Swiss embassy in Tehran. But these words lack leverage. The reality is that the Helios Ray is now anchored at an IRGC naval base near Bandar Abbas, its cargo a 2 million barrel hostage. The crew, comprised of Filipino and Indian nationals, are being held for interrogation regarding environmental violations, a familiar pretext used by Tehran to provide a thin veil of legal justification for state-sponsored piracy. This incident is not occurring in a vacuum. It comes just days after the latest round of nuclear negotiations in Vienna collapsed. Sources within the E3, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom report that Iranian negotiators presented new demands that were fundamentally unacceptable, effectively stalling the process indefinitely. The seizure of the Helios Ray is Tehran's response. It is a kinetic negotiation tactic. The message is clear. If diplomacy fails to lift sanctions and provide economic relief, Iran will impose its own form of economic pain on the international community. It is a high-risk gamble, predicated on the belief that a West distracted by the conflict in Ukraine and fearful of an energy-induced recession will ultimately choose concession over confrontation. This calculation may be a fatal misjudgment. The United States Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, has moved to a heightened state of alert. The USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group, previously on station in the Mediterranean, has been ordered to transit the Suez Canal and proceed with all available speed towards the Arabian Sea. This is a significant military escalation. A carrier strike group is not a defensive asset. It is a tool of power projection. Its arrival in the region, expected within 72 hours, will place overwhelming air and sea power on Iran's doorstep. This dramatically shrinks the window for a diplomatic solution and raises the probability of a direct military clash. The IRGC is not standing idle. Satellite intelligence from early this morning reveals the dispersal of their anti-ship missile batteries along the Iranian coastline. Their fleet of Ghadir-class midget submarines has reportedly deployed from their pens. They are preparing the battlefield for an asymmetric conflict, aiming to make any U.S. military intervention intolerably costly. This is the second rehook. A military confrontation is no longer a hypothetical scenario discussed in think tanks. Deployments are underway. Assets are being positioned. What does this mean for regional stability? It means that a single miscalculation, a single radar misidentification, or a single nervous trigger finger could ignite a conflict that engulfs the entire Middle East. The strategic logic behind Iran's move is complex, targeting multiple audiences simultaneously. First, the domestic audience. The Iranian economy is crippled by sanctions, and public discontent is high. A bold, nationalist act against Western interests serves as a powerful tool for the regime to rally support and project an image of strength, distracting from internal failures. Second, the regional audience. Iran is sending a message to its rivals, primarily Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It is demonstrating that despite their multi-billion-dollar arms purchases from the West, Iran retains the ability to strike at the core of their economic security, the free flow of oil. This reinforces Iran's position as the dominant regional power broker. Third, and most critically, the international audience, specifically Washington and Beijing. To Washington, the message is a threat. The cost of continued economic pressure will be global economic instability. To Beijing, the message is more nuanced. China is the single largest buyer of Iranian oil. By seizing a tanker destined for Japan, a key U.S. ally and a regional competitor to China, Iran is subtly reminding Beijing of its influence over East Asia's energy security. This creates a dangerous diplomatic triangle. The U.S. must respond to protect its allies and the principle of free navigation. China, while publicly calling for calm, benefits from any event that highlights the fragility of the U.S.-policed global order and increases its leverage over its energy-dependent neighbors. Russia sees an opportunity in the chaos, as a spike in oil prices helps fund its war in Ukraine and further divides Western attention. But a new piece of intelligence adds a deeply concerning layer to this crisis. A source within a European intelligence agency has confirmed a communication intercept. The intercept suggests the cyber attack on the Helios Ray was not launched from a typical IRGC cyber warfare unit. Instead, it was routed through servers located in a third country, using a previously unknown malware signature. The sophistication of the code suggests a possible collaboration with a state-level actor, one with advanced offensive cyber capabilities. While attribution is not yet confirmed, the list of potential partners is short and alarming. This elevates the incident from a regional provocation to a potential proxy action in a much larger global power struggle. It suggests that Iran may not be acting entirely alone. The third rehook is understanding the hidden forces at play. This isn't just about Iran versus the U.S. What if another global power is using Iran as a pawn to test U.S. resolve and disrupt the global economy for its own strategic benefit? This question reframes the entire conflict and dramatically raises the stakes. We are now entering the most dangerous phase. There are three primary scenarios moving forward. Scenario 1. De-escalation. Through back-channel diplomacy, likely mediated by Oman or Qatar, a deal is struck. Iran releases the tanker and crew in exchange for a minor, face-saving concession, perhaps the unfreezing of a small portion of its assets abroad. Oil prices would stabilize, but a new, higher-risk premium would be permanently priced into the market. This is the optimistic, but least likely, outcome. Scenario 2. Contained escalation. The U.S. Navy begins escorting flagged tankers through the strait. This was the strategy during Operation Earnest Will in the 1980s. This forces Iran's hand. They can either back down, losing credibility, or they can challenge the escorts. This could lead to a limited naval exchange, a bloody nose strike, where both sides engage, suffer minor losses, and then pull back, having proven their point. Markets would remain extremely volatile for weeks. Scenario 3. The Black Swan. This is the full-scale conflict. A direct Iranian attack on a U.S. naval vessel, or a U.S. preemptive strike on IRGC missile and drone facilities. In this scenario, Iran retaliates by attempting a full closure of the Strait of Hormuz, using its arsenal of sea mines, coastal missile batteries, and submarine forces. A full closure of the strait, even for a week, would be catastrophic for the global economy. Oil would not be priced in dollars. It would be priced in fear. Estimates from the World Bank suggest prices would surge past $200 a barrel, shattering all previous records. Global GDP would contract, triggering a worldwide recession deeper than the 2008 financial crisis. Supply chains would collapse. The economic fallout would be immediate and devastating. The final rehook is a direct and critical question for every investor, business owner, and citizen. Which sectors of your life and your portfolio are most exposed to a sudden, violent energy shock? Defense contractors and oil majors may see profits soar, but airlines, manufacturing, and consumer discretionary spending would be decimated. This is the financial reality of the geopolitical crisis now unfolding. The world now holds its breath, watching the chess moves of admirals and diplomats. The seizure of the MV Helios Ray was the opening salvo. The deployment of the USS George H.W. Bush is the countermove. Every satellite image, every shipping update, every diplomatic whisper will be scrutinized as the world waits to see if this crisis can be contained, or if it will spiral into a conflict that reshapes the global order. The next 48 hours will be critical. The situation is fluid and developing by the hour. For real-time analysis and unbiased intelligence on this and other global flashpoints, subscribe to Global Crisis Radar. Activate your notifications. In a world of uncertainty, information is your security.